Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Inside the Audit, Tools and Tactics to Stay Compliant and Confident. So I would like to introduce Magali Finkler Bani. She is a Senior Compliance Manager at ETQ, and I'm Jennifer Bianchini on the Product Marketing team, also at ETQ. Welcome, Magali. So here's a quick look at our agenda. We'll explore some of the challenges with audits and the value of an EQMS that it provides for managing audits. Then Magali will share some tips on how to prep for an audit, how to standardize processes to align with your audit goals, and how to align training to be compliant with ISO and FDA requirements. Then we'll share some customer success stories and questions we often hear from our customers. So let's dive in. A quality audit has different meanings depending on what your organization does, what department you support, or your role. So let's take 1 minute to level set and define what is an audit. So we went to the experts. And here is the definition of an audit as listed in the ISO guidelines for auditing management systems. So I'll read this to you here. So it's systematic, independent, and documented processes for obtaining audit evidence, records, statements of fact, or other information which are relevant and verifiable, and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which the audit criteria, a set of policies, procedures, or requirements are fulfilled. So that is quite a mouthful, and maybe you have this reaction when first reading it. So let's begin to break this down so you can always be audit ready. So here are some challenges we've heard from our customers that can come up during the audit process, issues they've experienced over time. The first being is that they have multiple systems that have duplicate pieces of information or inconsistent information. So how do you know what is correct? You have many different versions. Also, how do you take the information that is in a file system or a SharePoint folder and move it to a centralized system so it's easily accessible to the people who need it? And then there's the time that it takes to prepare for an audit. You know an audit's coming up. How do you find all of the information that you need to be prepared? How do you even know all of the information that you are going to need? And what is that auditor going to ask for? It can be a very stressful time. And then there are your suppliers. How do you have visibility into your suppliers so that you can get the information you need to address any audit questions? And finally, we have some folks who might do things one way, and then you have another team, perhaps in another location or the same building, and they do it a different way. So how can you ensure consistent quality if processes are not aligned? So there are a lot of different challenges that can come up during a quality audit, and these are just a few. And I'm sure everyone who is listening to our webinar can talk to their own set of challenges with audits as well. But it doesn't need to be that way. A quality management system provides the place for audits to happen and to be audit ready. So we did a research project with our customers not that long ago with a third-party company, and we took a look at the value of a quality management system. And part of that was specifically looking at the value they saw when it came to audit management. And what we heard from our customers was They really saw the value when it came to reducing the risk of noncompliance, and where they saved time spent on the planning and the execution of the audits. And also supporting external audits, because our customers do a lot of audits with their suppliers. And it also helped them reduce the number of audit findings, including when they were getting audited by an external organization, such as a regulatory agency like the FDA and OSHA, or even being audited by their customers. It also really helps to reduce the number of CAPAs, which is really important, as I'm sure we all know. So when you're looking at quantifying what this all means, as part of our research project, our customers saw the time spent planning and reporting on audits, it dropped 20%. And when it came to the time supporting the external audits, they saw a 50% reduction. And then for the number of audit findings, our customers saw that number go down 50%. These are real results that our customers received using a QMS. And it's pretty significant. And it all leads to improved productivity. So your teams just aren't there to support audits, but they can now go and focus on more strategic activities. So now I'm looking forward to hearing what Magali has to share with you all on some tips for being prepared for an audit. Magali, over to you.
Thank you. Will you be moving the slides?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so if we could go to the next one.
Sure.
So first of all, I like to say that you should not prepare for an audit. You should always be ready. Sometimes the FDA just can show up and knock at the door, and you won't have time to prepare. So the purpose of the upcoming slides is to help you see how to prepare for that. You should have an audit readiness program or plan in place. If it's the first time you start, we would take a look at it as a standalone project. Otherwise, as part of your internal audit program, you can make sure that your audit readiness is always in place. So the first step is to understand the regulations that you need to apply to and map those to any of your internal processes and control. So as part of the mapping, you can also ensure that your policies and procedure meet the requirement and prepare the audit checklist. So those checklists would help you when you do internal audits and any other preparation. Once you have your regulations and your controls, you need to understand what kind of records you're going to have available to show evidence to auditors or any other regulatory bodies. So you need to know where they are, and you need to know that they are available. Jennifer mentioned that if they're all centralized in a QMS, it's a lot easier to find something than running around a plant and trying to find documentation. Once you have that information, you should put an audit team together and either run a mock audit if it's the first time you're doing one, or use a practice during your internal audits. So you're going to have a host. So that's a person that's going to be understanding the question and the regulations, so they know who to talk to. You won't be, as a host, able to answer all the questions, so you need to identify your subject matter experts. So for the different functional area or the different processes, you need to know who to talk to and have someone that's going to be able to explain clearly and the processes to the auditor. We recommend to have a scribe to take note of all the information shared. That's important that you know what you shared in case of findings, and to make sure that you provided the right information. The runners is a team. It could be one person, or if it's a centralized system, you might not need a runner, but that's a person that's going to go get the information and the records that you need based on the question that you receive from your auditor. And you're going to have a reviewer. The reviewer is a person that's going to make sure that the form, the record, whatever you're providing as evidence has been filled out correctly and is the right information that you want to share. If you don't have a big team, the runner and the reviewer could be the same person, and sometimes the host can also take the notes on what the documentation has been shared. So after that, once you have done that practice, so as part of internal audits or during a mock audit, you want to have a plan to remediate any audit findings or any of that mock audit findings. You can put together what we call an audit readiness list. So this is the document that would show you who are the subject matter expert, where are the record localized, and you can use that as a reference during an audit, so you know where to look for and who to ask for. And the last part is, as part of the preparation, is to train your people. So you want to make sure that whoever the auditor is going to talk to have been prepared. So you want them to understand the question that the auditor is asking, and if they don't understand, they can either rephrase it to say, is it what you're asking for? Or just simply say, could you repeat the question? You don't want to have people answering something that is completely outside of the actual question. You want to let them know that they should answer the question. Don't add any more information. Don't expand. You just want to answer one question at a time. And if they don't know the answer, they should say that they don't know the answer, and they can either refer to someone who should know the answer, or can say that they can go back to their procedures so they can have the right answer to the auditor. We want to make sure that whoever is answering question is not inventing any answers just to try to please the auditor. The next slide, please. So that was to get prepared. During an audit, and this applies to both internal audits or when you get it audited from the external party, the first step is going to have an opening meeting. So generally you invite the functional area leadership. So if you have an agenda ahead of time, you can know who's going to be impacted and who should be invited. Generally, you would also have to want the leadership. So it shows to the auditor that the management is involved in your quality management system and they take quality very seriously. If it's the first time for the auditor to come, or if there's any changes that happened that were significant, you might want to provide a quick company presentation as part of this opening meeting. During the meeting, you want to document whoever was there, whoever was asked question to, what information was shared. So if you have any document ID, revision number, document name, that kind of information should be documented. And if the auditor says something, you might want to take note of it. It could be a compliment, it could be a potential findings, it could be an hint to whatever is going to come next and other questions that are going to come up. So it's important to take down those comments. At the end of the day, depending on the duration of the audit and the visibility of the audit, you might want to communicate a status to the management team. So you want also to make sure that any pending requests, if there's any, are going to be worked on. So your next day, you're ready to go back and show the evidence or answer any question that were pending. And as the audit goes on, if the auditors start pointing to some potential findings or telling you, oh, here you have an issue, and if that's something you can fix right away, then we recommend that you fix that for the next day so you can show that you have applied the resolution, and that can reduce also your amount of findings in the final report. At the end of the audit, you should have a closing meeting. Invite the same people that were at the opening meeting, and if there's any other that got involved during the audit, you can invite them. Take note of all the findings, and also take note of what the expectations are. So generally, the auditor is going to tell you, I'm going to give you the report in such amount of days, then you have that many days to answer us. And in some cases, they're going to tell you your action plan has to be finished by that time so we can do some effectiveness. So that information should happen at the closing meeting. Next slide. So what happens after the audit? So you can prepare based on the closing meeting. If they have a list of potential findings, you can start preparing your action plan. If there's no findings, then all you have to do is to wait for the report. And once the report is there, you can confirm if there's findings or not, finalize the action plan, and then send the answer to the auditor. Once that is completed, you would want to document the audit in a centralized place and also document all the findings as well as the action plan. So it is all documented and recorded in your quality management system. As lessons learned, if there's anything after the audit that you saw unusual that happened, but that did not flag for a finding, you might want to have an internal action plan so you know it's not going to happen the next time. So something that can help you is to standardize processes. So whether if you have multiple sites or multiple workflow, you want to try to align your processes to the audit goals. So the first helpful thing is to create checklists for your internal auditor. So this way they can all audit the same way, they can look at all the same requirements, and you're going to want to have guidelines and a procedure on how to conduct the audit and how to categorize findings so they all work with the same level, and how to manage findings and action plans. For the different processes, as much as possible, you would want to have the same processes in the different functional area. If you cannot have the same processes because of the inherent changes, at the minimum, you would want to have a standard documentation format. So when you audit, you have your purpose, your procedure, and the very details all at the same place. So it's easier for the auditor to find their answers or for people to share the answers. Something that can be done also is to review the findings from either other shop floors or other sites. If something happened in one site, it could happen to yours. So you would want to look at those and share the findings between the company so you can have preventive action if it applies to you in different sections. And lastly, you're going to want to train your auditors and your document control or your quality management system managers so they can maintain that standardization processes across the different functional area and the different section. Next slide, please. So why is it important to train and show that the training was done? So as part of the requirements and some of the basic of the ISO and the FDA rules, the personnel shall have the right skills, the knowledge, and the authority to perform their tasks. They shall be trained on the latest version of the procedures or the processes that are ongoing. And if it's not documented, it did not happen. So from a training point of view, you should have like a training plan or a training matrix. So for the different policies and procedures or work instruction or any other quality management system documentation that you have, you should identify which group needs to be trained on. So it depends on the scope of the procedure, it depends on the functional area, and you should identify identify that as part of your training plan. Once you have the plan, you assign the training. It can be done manually, it can be done through the system. If it's systemic, then it's easier to manage, and you can also, in an easier way, make sure that the training has been completed, which is the point number 3, making sure that one has been assigned, people are doing the training in a timely manner, and that they understood the procedures. And this is it for me. So now back to Jennifer. She's going to show you a few customer cases. Can you unmute, Jennifer?
No.
All right. Thanks, Magali. You had some really great tips in there. Really solid. I hope everyone took away some really good advice that Magali had there for being audit ready. So now what we'd like to do is we're just like, let's bring it home. Let's prove to you how a QMS helps our customers, how they have gotten through an audit. So the first is Fujifilm. So they've really evolved over the years through innovation and diversification. They have a 500-acre South Carolina campus, which includes 5 advanced manufacturing facilities and the company's largest global distribution center. So their systems were really siloed, and it was leading to inefficiencies and high maintenance costs. They previously had fragmented systems for document control, CAPA, and change management, and they were all consolidated to cut the audit prep time in half. They unified the 5 facilities under one quality management system using ETQ Reliance. So then they saw that their external audits were streamlined into a continuous assessment model, reducing disruptions and improving consistency. Their centralized processes enabled shorter audits and faster access to documentation. So kind of what Magali and I have been talking to you about, having everything centralized to be prepared for an audit, so it goes faster and it's more streamlined. So as a result of this, they saw the administration time drop from 1,500 hours to 750 hours annually. And their maintenance costs were also reduced by approximately $60,000 a year. So Fujifilm really went from film to flawless audits, turning quality chaos into a $60,000 savings snapshot. Next, I'd like to share about Plenty. So Plenty needed to meet very rigorous food safety and supplier audit standards while scaling a high-tech vertical farming operation. They had disconnected systems, which made audit readiness challenging, and traceability and supplier oversight time-consuming and inefficient. With ETQ Reliance, Plenty was able to centralize its quality data and document control, enabling rapid deployment and full audit readiness in just 1 month, 30 days. So as a result, they streamlined their compliance audits and supplier assessment using the automotive style production model. They also achieved full traceability from barcoding their seed trays to grocery store shelves. They also enabled routine supplier audits and PPAP processes to ensure consistent quality, including reducing their audit prep time and improved reporting with a single scalable quality system. So Plenty was able to reinforce their efficiency ethos with a solution that supports rapid growth and strict compliance. So Plenty was not only saving water and land, but now audit hours. So talk about farming smarter, but not harder. Okay, so next I would just like to take a quick moment and share a little bit more about ETQ with you. As I'm sure you're all aware, there are a lot of phases in the EQMS journey. But no matter where you are in your quality journey, at ETQ, we're ready to help. We have a comprehensive purpose-built EQMS where you can reduce cost, streamline operations, and build compliance into your processes that result in improved efficiency, time to market, sustainability, and bottom line results. We also offer a range of professional services, including managed services, to meet your needs at any stage of your quality journey. As you can see with ETQ, you are in good company. We serve hundreds of customers of all shapes and sizes across many industries, and we take the learnings and best practices from across all of those industries to provide a unique value to all of our customers. And we've been doing it for over 30 years, empowering quality champions like you to use quality management as a catalyst for business success. And we also aim to be a trusted advisor to our customers, and we'd love to have the opportunity to share our expertise and help you. We are also a part of Hexagon, a global leader in sensor, software, and autonomous manufacturing solutions. Okay, so now we've reached the part of the webinar where we'd like to share with you some of the questions that we frequently hear from our customers about audits. So Magali had graciously agreed to help out with answering these questions. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with the first one. So here's one we hear a lot about, Magali. How frequently should someone be prepared for an audit?
So you should always be prepared for an audit. It should not be something that happens every once in a while. So you want to maintain your procedures, making sure your staff is trained, and do your regular internal audits so you're ready.
Yeah, that's really solid advice, and I knew you were going to say that. And I really like how you suggested that people should do a mock audit. I hadn't heard of that before, and I don't know how common that is, but it's just kind of like with anything else that we want to be prepared for it to happen, that we go through like a mock trial. We go through the process itself. Okay, let's see, what's another one? We've got, what are some tactics for dealing with surprise audits?
So you have to be audit ready. So you can do the mock audits like you mentioned. So when the audit does happen, you are prepared, your staff and the personnel on the floor, and you can have that audit readiness checklist that I mentioned, so you know who to talk to and where to find the information.
Yeah. And one of the things I think with the audit checklist, it's having that in your QMS so that everyone has access to it and can review that checklist and be prepared, right?
Yes, and if you have a QMS, your documentation, most of it is going to be there, so it's easier to know where to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's see. Another question we hear a lot about is, how do you ensure internal auditors are impartial and can be objective?
So generally, first you need to train them on the procedures and your checklist, and you should have definition of what is a critical, a minor, or depending on how you assign your findings. And then you should, if possible, try to have auditors audit a functional area that is not theirs, so they can ask questions and don't be biased.
Yeah, no, I like that one, going to an area that they're not as familiar with. No, thank you for that. That's a good, like I said, you're giving some solid advice today. Thanks. Okay, I think we've got one more. Yep. So in the absence of having a lot of data, what are some of the internal audit areas you would recommend first for audits?
So even if you don't have data, you have a pretty good idea of which of your functional areas are the most critical. So I would start by those to make sure that they're ready for any audit.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you, Magali. That brings us to the end of our webinar. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and learning more about how to be audit ready. Take care.